Ever wonder what happened to all those bizarre Hanna-Barbera experiments that didn't become household names? The studio that gave us Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones also spent the 1980s throwing wild ideas at the screen: robot bears, rock operas, space races, and even Christmas in Packland. Some worked, most didn't. But every one of them captured a weird kind of magic only Hanna-Barbera could create. So grab your cereal bowl. It's time to revisit 21 oddities television tried to forget. Yogi's First Christmas, 1980. It sounds wholesome enough, Yogi Bear celebrating Christmas, but this feature-length TV movie is pure Hanna-Barbera chaos wrapped in tinsel. Broadcast in 1980, it tried to rebrand Yogi as a heartwarming holiday hero, while juggling nearly every character from Jellystone Park to Boo Boo's extended universe. The result? A crossover Christmas event that felt like the Avengers of cartoon woodland creatures. The setup is simple. Yogi, who usually hibernates through the holidays, wakes up at a mountain resort buzzing with guests, snow, and decorations. There's a cranky hotel owner, a mischievous elf, and a full roster of side characters from Ranger Smith to Cindy Bear. The story stretches 2 full hours, stitched together with original songs and heavy moral lessons about togetherness. It was ambitious and oddly hypnotic. Yogi's First Christmas ended up airing almost every December throughout the 80s, making it one of Hanna-Barbera's most recycled specials. Yet it faded from memory as the studio shifted focus to newer mascots. Still, its old VHS tapes and full YouTube uploads are like portals back to a time when holiday special meant endless jingles and hand-painted snowflakes. Christmas Comes to Packland, 1982. Imagine Pac-Man trying to save Santa. That's not a parody, that's canon. Christmas Comes to Packland aired in 1982, and it might be the most unintentionally surreal holiday crossover ever created. Hanna-Barbera was riding high on its Pac-Man cartoons' popularity, so the studio decided to merge arcade logic with Christmas magic. The story begins when Santa crash lands in Packland after a snowstorm. The Pac family, complete with Mrs. Pac-Man and Baby Pac, rushes to help him fix his sleigh before Christmas is ruined. Along the way, they battle the ghost monsters in a snow-covered maze that looks suspiciously like a repainted game level. There's something hilariously earnest about watching round yellow characters hum carols while discussing Christmas spirit. It's clunky awkward, and yet completely charming in that early 80s TV way. The animation is pure Hanna-Barbera efficiency, reusing frames from the regular series. Critics didn't know what to make of it, but for a generation of kids who watched it live, it was weirdly unforgettable. Today, it survives online as one of those rare crossovers that remind us how far studios would stretch to make holiday television sparkle. The Secret World of Og, 1983. Before Pixar made friendship adventures fashionable, Hanna-Barbera tried something strange and literary. The Secret World of Og. Adapted from Pierre Berton's Canadian children's novel, this special is one of the most visually distinct pieces in the studio's 80s library. The plot follows 5 siblings who discover a hidden civilization beneath their playhouse floor, a colorful underground world ruled by little green creatures called Ogs. It's imaginative, mysterious, and laced with soft sci-fi undertones. Unlike most HB productions, the animation leans into atmosphere instead of speed. Deep blues, glowing caverns, and echoing sound design give it a dreamlike quality rarely seen in network animation of the time. What's fascinating is how the Secret World of Og marked a tonal experiment for the studio. Hanna-Barbera, best known for wacky comedies, tried to build quiet tension and wonder instead. It aired mostly in Canada and slipped under American radar, making it a hidden gem today. Full copies have resurfaced online, revealing a rare side of the company, one that wanted to be taken seriously as a storyteller. It's haunting, heartfelt, and far more ambitious than anyone expected from the house that built Yogi Bear. Star Fairies, 1985. You can practically hear the toy commercials in your head already. Star Fairies was Hanna-Barbera's entry into the booming toy-to-TV market of the mid-'80s, produced alongside Tonka, and trying to capture the same magic that made Care Bears and My Little Pony a phenomenon. But instead of rainbow horses or cuddly bears, we got winged fairies living in the clouds who granted wishes through singing. The special introduced 6 main fairies, each color-coded with predictable personality traits, hope, whisper, and jazz among them. They descended to Earth to help a lonely girl named Hillary find friendship, all while dodging a jealous witch named Lady Diabolin. The result was an odd blend of sugar-coated charm and mid-budget weirdness. Despite impressive cell animation for the time, Star Fairies barely made an impression beyond its toy line. Kids found it cute but confusing, while critics noted it felt more like a commercial than a movie. Hanna-Barbera had banked on an ongoing series, but when the toy sales fizzled, so did the franchise. Today, the full special lives quietly online, a pastel relic of a moment when even Hanna-Barbera chased toy aisle glory. GoBots, Battle of the Rock Lords, 1986. Before Michael Bay made transforming robots, a Hollywood juggernaut, Hanna-Barbera, had GoBots, Battle of the Rock Lords. Released theatrically in 1986, it was meant to compete directly with The Transformers. The movie. Spoiler. It didn't. But it remains a fascinating artifact from the studio's attempt to conquer the silver screen with plastic heroes. The movie brings back the GoBots' alien robots who disguise themselves as vehicles and pits them against a new race of warriors made of living stone. The tone is more serious than the Saturday morning show, with sweeping music and surprisingly decent fight choreography. Yet the animation co-produced with Japan's Toei Animation swings between impressive and chaotic. Hanna-Barbera's ambition was clear. They wanted a piece of the blockbuster pie. But audiences didn't show up. The movie earned modest returns and disappeared from theaters within weeks. Still, it's notable for its cast featuring voices like Margot Kidder and Roddy McDowall, who lent unexpected gravitas to lines about rock people alliances. Today, it's found new life among retro animation fans. Part curiosity, part cult classic. Watching it now feels like discovering the alternate universe Transformers that almost were. Yogi's Great Escape, 1987. Yogi Bear had been around since the dawn of color television, but Yogi's Great Escape tried to modernize him for a new generation. Airing in 1987 as part of the Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 series, it was the studio's attempt to revive its classic icons through feature-length TV movies. The result? Yogi turned into a full-blown road movie hero. The story begins with Jellystone Park being shut down by the government. Yes, even Yogi wasn't safe from bureaucracy. Determined not to be relocated to a zoo, Yogi and Boo Boo escape with 3 orphaned bear cubs hitting the open road in search of freedom. The film unfolds like a cross between a chase comedy and a travelogue taking viewers from small towns to the big city, while rangers, police, and even the press try to catch them. It's filled with classic gags, musical interludes, and the kind of odd sincerity that makes you root for a cartoon bear against city officials. The animation is simple but bright, and the soundtrack leans heavily on 80s optimism. While it didn't spark the massive comeback Hanna-Barbera hoped for, Yogi's Great Escape holds up as one of the last great adventures for the picnic basket thief before the 90s reinvented him in reruns. Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers, 1987. Scooby-Doo met ghosts plenty of times, but the Boo Brothers marked the point where haunted mystery collided with Looney Tunes energy. Released in 1987, this TV movie begins when Shaggy inherits a spooky southern mansion and promptly discovers it's haunted for real. Instead of calling the old gang, he hires the Boo Brothers, a trio of ghostly detectives modeled after the Three Stooges. What follows is pure slapstick madness: trapdoors, treasure maps, and jokes that come faster than the plot can catch them. There's no real mystery, just a carousel of chaos involving a creepy caretaker, a mischievous monkey, and enough pratfalls to fill an hour and a half. What makes the Boo Brothers special is its tone. It's not scary, it's absurd. The ghosts are friendly, the villains are bumbling, and the humor leans more on old-school vaudeville than on the typical Scooby formula. It was one of the first times Hanna-Barbera openly parodied its own brand, showing a willingness to experiment before Scooby's later revamps. Today, it feels like a transitional film, silly, self-aware, and endlessly watchable in that Saturday afternoon rerun kind of way. The Jetsons meet the Flintstones, 1987. Every fan had probably imagined it. What would happen if the Stone Age met the Space Age? In 1987, Hanna-Barbera finally made it happen with The Jetsons, Meet the Flintstones, one of their biggest crossover events ever. It's part time travel comedy, part corporate experiment, and entirely 80s in tone. The plot kicks off when George Jetson's malfunctioning time machine accidentally sends his family back to the prehistoric world of bedrock. Naturally, they bump into Fred Wilma, and the gang setting off a cultural mashup that feels like a cartoon Back to the Future. From flying cars stuck in tar pits to futuristic gadgets confusing cavemen, it's a barrage of fish-out-of-water humor. The movie cleverly contrasts the two worlds' automation versus manpower space-age convenience versus prehistoric creativity. And underneath the comedy, there's a genuine charm in how both families learn from each other. Though critics found it gimmicky, audiences loved seeing these two universes collide. It became a VHS staple and a favorite on cable reruns. Looking back, The Jetsons Meet the Flintstones captures that nostalgic optimism that defined Hanna-Barbera's best work families, laughter, and the belief that even a few thousand years can't stop a good friendship. Yogi Bear and the Magical Flight of the Spruce Goose, 1987. By the late 1980s, Hanna-Barbera had entered its bigger is better phase, and Yogi Bear and the Magical Flight of the Spruce Goose might be the wildest example. Inspired by Howard Hughes's real-life airplane, this TV movie takes Yogi Boo-Boo and their friends on a globe-trotting adventure aboard the legendary flying boat. The story begins when Yogi and company stumble upon the massive plane, now mysteriously capable of flight again. They board it only to be whisked away on a series of adventures involving endangered animals, tropical islands, and environmental messages that feel surprisingly ahead of their time. The film blends comedy adventure and ecological awareness, though sometimes all at once, which makes for a delightfully odd experience. Visually, it's one of Hanna-Barbera's more ambitious TV projects, with grand aerial sequences and sweeping backgrounds. The pacing, however, jumps from epic to goofy in seconds. It didn't become a hit, but it stands as one of those earnest, oversized attempts to make Yogi a moral leader rather than just a picnic raider. Watching it now feels like finding a lost relic from a time when Saturday morning cartoons thought saving the planet was just another weekend hobby. Rock Odyssey, 1987. Now we enter the surreal. Rock Odyssey is Hanna-Barbera's strangest animated film part, musical journey part, psychedelic time capsule. Though completed in the early 80s, it wasn't officially aired in the United States until years later, and even then only sporadically. The film follows a woman named Laura as she searches for love through 4 decades of popular music from the 50s to the 80s, with narration provided by a talking jukebox. Yes, really. It's filled with kaleidoscopic animation, abstract sequences, and surprisingly emotional storytelling. Unlike anything else Hanna-Barbera ever produced, Rock Odyssey feels more like an art film than a cartoon. It features music from icons like Janis Joplin, the Rolling Stones, and Elvis Presley blending live-action footage with animation in a way that feels closer to Fantasia than the Flintstones. The project was so unusual that Hanna-Barbera shelved it for years, worried that it was too adult or too strange for television. It finally saw limited international release in 1987, becoming a cult object among animation enthusiasts. Today, bootleg versions exist, online proof that even the kings of Saturday morning once tried to make a rock opera for the MTV generation and almost got away with it. Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats, 1988. If you've ever wondered what would happen if a street-smart alley cat suddenly became rich, Top Cat and the Beverly Hills Cats answered that in full 80s style. Airing in 1988, this TV movie revived the smooth-talking feline from the 60s and dropped him straight into the world of glitter greed and Hollywood absurdity. The story begins when Top Cat and his gang inherit a mansion after helping a wealthy heiress in trouble. Suddenly, the back alley crew is living among Fountain's fancy furniture and fortune-hunting villains who want to steal it all. The mix of slapstick comedy and Beverly Hills satire is pure time capsule, diamond necklaces, limousine chases, and over-the-top villains straight from the decade of excess. Hanna-Barbera packed the movie with self-aware humor and jazzy music that matched Top Cat's charm. It was both a tribute and a reboot, trying to introduce the classic character to a generation raised on MTV and Neon. Though it didn't spark a full revival, it kept the franchise alive just long enough for future generations to rediscover it. Watching it now feels like flipping through a cartoon tabloid, a wild, stylish reminder that even alley cats had a taste for luxury in the 1980s. The Good, the Bad, and Huckleberry Hound. 1988. Huckleberry Hound, the gentle blue dog with a southern drawl, wasn't exactly the first name you'd picture in a Western adventure. But in The Good, the Bad, and Huckleberry Hound, Hanna-Barbera gave him a cowboy hat and sent him riding into a dusty parody of spaghetti westerns. Released in 1988, this feature-length special puts Huck in the middle of a revenge tale. Yes, a revenge tale after his town is attacked by outlaws, led by a villainous Dalton family knockoff. He joins forces with Quick Draw McGraw Baba Louie and a cast of HB favorites, all reimagined as Western archetypes. What could have been corny turns into a surprisingly charming send-up of cowboy movie cliches. There's desert humor, fast-draw duels, without the danger, and a surprisingly heartfelt message about bravery and justice. The animation feels cinematic for a TV release, and the tone balances slapstick with genuine storytelling effort. It never reached mainstream success, but for Hanna-Barbera fans it's a delightful experiment, a rare instance where the studio flirted with genre filmmaking through its cartoon icons. Think of it as a PG version of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, told by your Saturday morning babysitter, Rockin' with Judy Jetson, 1988. Before Space Girls ruled pop charts, there was Judy Jetson, and in 1988 she got her own animated rock musical. Rockin' with Judy Jetson turned the teen daughter of George Jetson into a futuristic pop star, complete with neon outfits, laser lights, and synth-driven songs that sound like every 80s dance hit crammed into one soundtrack. The story revolves around Judy writing a hit song that accidentally triggers a plot by an evil alien record executive to brainwash humanity through music. The premise is absurdly fun, filled with shiny animation disco lights and robots that double as stage crew. The tone screams, Saturday morning meets MTV. What makes Rockin' with Judy Jetson stand out is how boldly it embraces girl power energy before that term even existed in pop culture. Judy's optimism and confidence drive the story, making it one of Hanna-Barbera's few female-led specials. The songs, though cheesy, are catchy enough to live rent-free in your head after one listen. While the movie didn't launch the Jetson reboot the studio hoped for, it remains an underappreciated slice of animated pop history, a time capsule from when space fashion and synth music were the future. Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears, 1988. By the late 80s, Hanna-Barbera was determined to make Yogi Bear relevant again, and that meant aliens. Yogi and the Invasion of the Space Bears took the beloved bear and dropped him into a science fiction parody that could have only come from this decade. The story opens with Yogi and Boo Boo being abducted by a pair of friendly aliens conducting research on Earth's wildlife. Things go sideways when their spaceship is hijacked by evil clones of Yogi created from a duplication ray. What follows is an intergalactic comedy of errors filled with laser beams, floating picnic baskets, and slapstick space chaos. It's part parody, part homage to the sci-fi craze dominating 80s pop culture. Yogi's charm, as always, anchors the madness. The film's animation pops with bright colors, cosmic backgrounds, and a synth-heavy score that gives it surprising energy. Though it never reached the iconic status of the original shorts, Invasion of the Space Bears stands as a perfect example of Hanna-Barbera's throw everything at the screen era, a time when even a talking bear couldn't escape space adventures. Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, 1988. If you've ever wanted to see Scooby-Doo in a monster high school, you're in luck. Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School is one of the strangest, most beloved oddities of Hanna-Barbera's late 80s output. The plot sends Scooby, Shaggy, and Scrappy to work as gym teachers at Miss Grimwood's finishing school for ghouls, a boarding school, where the students happen to be the daughters of famous movie monsters. There's Sibella, daughter of Dracula, Elsa Frankenteen, a pink-haired Frankenstein's monster, and Phantasma, the hyperactive ghost. What could have been a cheap gimmick turns into a surprisingly warm and funny story about acceptance and friendship. The ghouls are lovable, the animation is lively, and the humor walks the line between spooky and silly. The movie became a cult favorite, especially among fans who loved its unique blend of gothic charm and Scooby-style comedy. It even inspired future spin-offs and fan art decades later. Ghoul School proves that when Hanna-Barbera leaned into its weird side, the results could be pure gold. It's not just another Scooby mystery, it's a monster mash with a heart. Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf, 1988. Just when you think Scooby-Doo's adventures couldn't get stranger along comes the Reluctant Werewolf. Released in 1988, this TV movie reimagined Shaggy, not Scooby, as the main character, and turned him into a werewolf. Yes, really. The story begins when Count Dracula hosts a monster road rally, but his star racer drops out. So the Count decides to transform Shaggy into a werewolf to take his place. What follows is an outlandish cartoon mashup of NASCAR and horror tropes, with Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy zooming through monster-filled racetracks against opponents like Frankenstein the Mummy and the Wolfman. The tone is pure chaos, leaning heavily into slapstick and high-speed antics. The animation, though typical of late Hanna-Barbera, captures the manic energy of a supernatural race that looks like wacky races on caffeine. While some longtime fans missed the mystery-solving element, kids loved it for its sheer fun. The Reluctant Werewolf marks one of Scooby-Doo's final 80s outings, before the franchise went quiet for several years. Today, it's remembered as a lovable oddball, a monster movie, a racing comedy, and a Halloween fever dream all in one. You can almost hear the voice actors laughing through the absurdity, and that's part of its charm. The Smurfs Christmas Special, 1982. Before the Smurfs became a merchandising empire, They starred in one of Hanna-Barbera's most surprisingly heartfelt holiday stories. The Smurfs Christmas special, which aired in 1982, took the Blue Crew out of their cozy mushroom village and into a tale that was part fairy tale, part emotional roller coaster. It begins when two lost children stumble into the Smurf forest on Christmas Eve. Papa Smurf and the gang rush to help them find their way home, but their journey turns unexpectedly dark when a sinister stranger appears intent on stopping them. The story takes a dramatic turn, with eerie lighting, haunting music, and genuine suspense that made it feel more like a fable than a Saturday morning cartoon. Despite its emotional edge, the special never loses its heart. The Smurfs embody kindness, courage, and community, showing that even the smallest heroes can make a big difference. The animation glows with warm winter tones, and the orchestral score elevates it far beyond typical children's programming. While it aired for years during the holidays, many have forgotten how cinematic it truly was. Watching it now feels like rediscovering a lost treasure from the height of '80s. TV magic proof that Hanna-Barbera could mix wonder warmth and a little mystery better than anyone else in animation's golden years. Pound Puppies, 1985. When toy companies ruled television, Hanna-Barbera couldn't resist joining the trend. Pound Puppies, based on the hit toy line, was their attempt to capture lightning in a lunchbox. The 1985 TV movie introduced a world of talking dogs living in a pound, helping kids find happiness while dodging capture from an overzealous dog catcher. The characters' cooler bright eyes and Nose Marie each had strong personalities, blending charm with slapstick comedy. The story balanced humor and sentiment, emphasizing kindness, teamwork, and hope. It had catchy songs and a surprising amount of heart for what was essentially a toy commercial in disguise. The special's success led to an animated series the following year, which kept the same tone of compassion and gentle adventure. While it eventually faded as newer fads emerged, Pound Puppies left behind a legacy of warmth. It wasn't just a marketing ploy, it genuinely made kids care about rescue animals long before that became a trend. Today, it feels like a forgotten comfort blanket from a kinder corner of '80s television. The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, 1988. What happens when Saturday Night Live collides with Saturday morning cartoons? Hanna-Barbera answered that question with The Completely Mental Misadventures of Ed Grimley, a 1988 series based on Martin Short's eccentric character from SCTV and SNL. It was weird, energetic, and unlike anything else on television. Ed Grimley, the hyperactive, triangle-haired man-child in suspenders, became the first SNL character to star in his own animated show. Hanna-Barbera leaned all the way into the chaos, combining live-action segments, celebrity cameos, and surreal humor that felt half sketch comedy, half fevered dream. Each episode had Ed navigating bizarre situations, haunted apartments, science experiments gone wrong, even musical numbers that defied logic. The supporting cast was equally oddball, featuring animated versions of SCTV regulars Andrea Martin and Joe Flaherty, along with the amazing Gustav brothers and an on-screen live-action segment hosted by Count Floyd. The tone was pure '80s absurdism, bright colors, jazz horns, and breakneck pacing that made even Tiny Toon adventures look tame. Critics didn't know what to do with it. Too adult for kids, too childish for adults. Yet it became a cult hit for those who loved its fearless weirdness. Ed Grimley proved that Hanna-Barbera, even in its twilight years, wasn't afraid to experiment wildly with pop culture. It's one of those rare shows where you can genuinely say, they just don't make them like this anymore. The Pirates of Dark Water, 1991. As the '80s faded, Hanna-Barbera made one last bold swing for epic storytelling, The Pirates of Dark Water. Premiering in 1991, It was a dark, ambitious fantasy unlike anything the studio had attempted before. Gone were the picnic baskets and pratfalls. In their place came a roiling alien sea, cursed treasure, and a hero trying to save his dying world. The story follows Ren, the Prince of Octopon, as he searches for the lost treasures of Rule to purge his planet's oceans of the toxic, dark water. He's joined by a pirate crew straight out of pulp adventure Ioz the Rogue, Tula the Eco-Warrior, and Niddler the Monkey Bird. What made it revolutionary was tone. The colors were moody and rich, the stakes felt real, and the animation produced partly overseas had cinematic scope. But ambition came at a price. The series was too expensive to sustain, and the story ended before its epic quest was complete. Even so, The Pirates of Darkwater became a cult classic, inspiring a generation of animators who grew up on its strange mix of swashbuckling and sorrow. It proved Hanna-Barbera could go beyond comfort food cartoons, creating something genuinely mythic just before the curtain fell on its golden era. The Jetsons' Christmas Carol, 1985. Long before the Muppet Christmas Carol became the gold standard, Hanna-Barbera tried its own futuristic spin on Dickens with the Jetsons' Christmas Carol in 1985. It was a bold attempt to mix holiday heart with sci-fi comedy, and the result was exactly as strange and delightful as it sounds. George Jetson takes the role of Scrooge not out of malice, but out of pure workaholic exhaustion. Obsessed with pleasing Mr. Spacely, he forgets to enjoy the holidays or spend time with his family. Enter the ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future, each rendered as robotic holograms who whisk him through time on glowing hover platforms. There's no grim London fog here, only neon skylines, space malls, and flying sleighs powered by jet fuel. It's absurd, it's heartwarming, and it's pure Hanna-Barbera charm. The story blends humor and sentiment in equal doses, reminding audiences that even in the 21st century, the real joy of Christmas still comes down to family. Judy sings Astro howls at holograms, and even Mr. Spacely gets a redemption arc. Though it never became a holiday staple, the Jetsons' Christmas Carol stands as one of the studio's most endearing one-off specials, a curious mix of morality tale and retro future spectacle. Watching it today feels like plugging into a pastel-colored time machine, one that captures exactly what made the 80s so memorable. Sincerity, wrapped in chrome, glitter, and heart. From Bears in Space to pop star Jetsons, the 1980s were Hanna-Barbera's strangest, boldest, and most experimental years. These forgotten gems prove the studio never stopped trying to evolve, even when the results were gloriously bizarre. Which of these oddities do you remember seeing? Or did you just discover something new to hunt down online? Drop your favorite in the comments, hit subscribe, and join us next time as we unearth more lost treasures from the golden age of animation.